Daniel O'Connor was doing routine checks in the old Blue Line tunnels at 2:47 a.m. when he saw the headlights of an approaching train on the tracks. But according to the shift schedule, no trains were running at that time. As the train approached, Daniel could read the faded number 447 and saw the man in the engineer's cabin waving at him. The man shouted Daniel's name. "Are you Patrick O'Connor's grandson?" Daniel's heart stopped. His grandfather Patrick had died 30 years ago. How did this person know him? And even more horrifying, 23 passengers wearing 1950s clothing were sitting in the train, all looking at Daniel and moving their lips trying to say something. As Daniel picked up the radio to report to headquarters, the train suddenly vanished, leaving only the scent of old perfume and cigarette smoke in the tunnel. The Boston Metro System is America's first underground transportation network, opened in 1897. The Blue Line is one of the oldest lines in the system, connecting East Boston with downtown. During the expansion work in the 1950s, the system's darkest secret was born: the mysterious disappearance of Train 447. 34-year-old Daniel O'Connor, following in his family's footsteps as a third-generation Metro worker, worked as a night operator in this historic system. Daniel, the grandson of an Irish immigrant family, was proud that his grandfather and father had worked in the Boston Metro system. However, there was a dark past never mentioned in family stories, and Daniel would soon learn why. The events Daniel experienced during his night shifts on the Blue Line would confront him with a mystery much deeper than just Metro operation. The appearance of Ghost Train 447 on the same route every night, the story of 23 passengers and engineer Murphy O'Sullivan lost in time, would bring Daniel face to face with that tragic night in 1950. And the most shocking truth would be Daniel's discovery of his family's connection to these events. Daniel O'Connor grew up in Southie, South Boston neighborhood, a child of a third-generation Irish-American family. His grandfather, Patrick O'Connor, worked as a track worker in Boston Metro in the 1920s, and his father, Sean O'Connor, worked as a train operator from 1970 to 2010. Although Daniel graduated from MIT with a mechanical engineering degree, he chose to work in the Metro system to continue the family tradition. After being hired by MBTA, Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, he preferred night shifts. Fewer passengers, less stress, more pay. He worked on the 12.5-mile route between Revere Beach and Bowdoin stations on the Blue Line. The route he used most was the old route through East Boston tunnels, narrow and dark tunnels built in the 1950s. Daniel's job was to monitor the system from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. after the last trains, perform emergency checks, and prepare for the first trains in the morning. Daniel's first night shift on the Blue Line was not going quietly at all. After taking the last passenger train from Government Center to East Boston at 1:30 a.m., the system had switched to control mode. At 2:47 a.m., while doing routine checks in the old tunnel between Maverick and Airport stations, he saw a train headlight coming from a distance. He checked on the center radios. No trains were running at that time. As the light approached, Daniel began to notice horrifying details. An old blue-white train, but its paint seemed faded and rusted. The number 447 was written on the front of the train, and an elderly man in the engineer's cabin was waving at Daniel. Most horrifying were the passengers inside the train cars. Women wore 1950s skirts and blouses. Men were wearing hats and suits. A child had pressed his face against the glass window, looking at Daniel. His eyes were completely white. When Daniel froze, the train passed by silently. No engine sound, no rail squeaking, only cold wind filling the tunnel and the scent of old perfume. Daniel reported to Central Control. "Control, this is Daniel. There's a rogue train in the eastbound tunnel, number 447. There are passengers inside, but..." "Control. Daniel, there's no train number 447. System is completely clear. You must be tired." But when Daniel saw the 1950s train ticket he found on the ground with his flashlight, he realized this wasn't a hallucination. On the night of November 9th, before coming to work, Daniel researched train number 447 in the MBTA archives. The information he found surprised him. MBTA archive record, 1950. Blue Line train 447 made its last trip on March 15, 1950. It departed from Revere Beach to East Boston with engineer Murphy O'Sullivan and 23 passengers. The train never reached its destination station and was never seen again after that day. The records had even more interesting details. Train 447 departed from Revere Beach at 23:45 that night. Last seen between Maverick Airport Tunnel. Search and rescue operations lasted 3 weeks. Neither the train, passengers, nor engineer were found. Case was closed as unexplained disappearance. On the night of November 10th, Daniel decided to wait in the same tunnel. At 2:45 a.m., train number 447 appeared again. This time, Daniel approached the train. The train stopped and cold wind came out of the cars. There was an elderly man in the engineer's cabin. His face was pale. His eyes were in deep hollows. The man called out to Daniel, but his voice seemed to come from very far away. "Hey, who are you? What are you doing on this route? This place isn't safe, son." Daniel replied, "I'm Daniel O'Connor, Metro operator." The engineer looked at Daniel in amazement, then slowly smiled. "O'Connor? Are you Patrick O'Connor's grandson?" "Oh my God, I'm Murphy O'Sullivan. I used to work with Patrick." Daniel's heart began beating rapidly. Are you Murphy O'Sullivan, the engineer who disappeared in 1950? Murphy's face was shadowed with sorrow. "Disappeared? No, son, we didn't disappear. They killed us, and we've been trapped in this cursed tunnel ever since." At that moment, a child's crying sound came from the cars. Murphy turned back. "Little Tommy is scared again. He's been crying for 74 years, wanting to go home." When Daniel looked at the cars, he saw an 8-year-old child hitting the glass window and moaning, "Mom, Mom, I want to go home." Murphy approached Daniel. "Son, get out of here. Even if you're Patrick's grandson, this isn't a safe place. They're still here." "Who?" "Those who killed us. They come every night, check. If they see you too." The train suddenly vanished. Daniel was left alone in the tunnel, but little Tommy's crying was still ringing in his ears. On the morning of November 11th, Daniel called his father, Sean. "Dad, did Grandpa Patrick have a friend named Murphy O'Sullivan?" Sean's voice changed. "Daniel, where did you hear that name?" "I saw him on the Blue Line. Murphy said he knew you." Sean was silent for a long time. "Come to my house. There's something I need to talk to you about." That evening, Sean told Daniel the family secret. "Murphy O'Sullivan was your father's closest friend. In 1950, he was working on train 447. I'll never forget that night. I was 12 years old. Dad wanted Murphy to change his shift. Murphy was going to board 447, but at the last minute, Patrick tried to stop him. Why? Because Patrick sensed that strange things would happen in the tunnel that night. Murphy didn't listen. He went and never came back." Sean continued. Dad blamed himself for Murphy's disappearance. From that day on, he always said, "I could have saved Murphy." On the night of November 12th, Daniel decided to help Murphy. He waited in the same place, and when train 447 came, he boarded the train. When he stepped into the cars, Daniel's breath was taken away. The cars were from the 1950s, and 23 passengers were sitting. But they were all dead. Their skin was gray, their eyes were like glass, and they weren't breathing. Women wore 50s dresses, men were hatted, children were in school clothes. But most horrifying was that they all turned to look at Daniel at the same time. An elderly woman approached Daniel. Are you alive?" she asked, her voice like wind. "Yes, I'm Daniel O'Connor." The woman blinked. "O'Connor. Patrick O'Connor's family. He tried to save us." Little Tommy came next to Daniel. The child's face was pale, his lips were purple. "Mister, can I go home? My mom is worried. I've been waiting for 74 years. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "Tommy, you've already lost your family?" Tommy started crying. "No. Mom is waiting for me to come home. She prepares dinner every evening." Murphy called Daniel to the cabin. "Do you see? They don't accept that they're dead. They don't remember what happened that night. They just want to go home. We should tell them the truth. I tried. I've been trying for 74 years, but the trauma is too great. Only if they remember that night, they can find peace." As Daniel toured the cars, he learned each passenger's story. Margaret Sullivan was holding student homework. "I must return to my class. The children are waiting for me." James McCarthy was clutching his wife's photo. I married Mary. We were going on our honeymoon. Each was trying to continue the life that was left unfinished that night. On the night of November 13th, Daniel wanted to learn more. Murphy told him about that night in detail, but this time Daniel didn't just listen. He lived that night. When Murphy touched Daniel's hand, Daniel found himself on that night in 1950, as if he had traveled through time. Alarm sirens were blaring in the tunnel. Military uniformed men were forcing the train to stop. Passengers were in panic. In 1950, the Cold War had begun. Murphy's voice echoed in Daniel's mind. The government was conducting secret experiments in Boston. Blue Line tunnels were being used for atomic bomb shelter testing. Daniel saw that night as if he was living it. The military commander boarded the train. This train cannot pass from here. All passengers will be detained for national security reasons. Murphy objected. These people are innocent. They want to go home. Unfortunately, that's not possible. They've seen too much. Little Tommy was crying and calling for his mother. Margaret Sullivan was thinking of her students. James McCarthy of his new wife, Mary. The commander took out the needle in his hand. This is just a sedative. You won't feel anything. But Daniel saw the truth. The needle didn't contain sedative. It contained radioactive material. They injected each passenger. What kind of tests? Radiation experiments. That night they left radioactive material in the tunnel and wanted to observe what would happen. We became test subjects. Daniel watched the passengers die one by one. First they couldn't breathe, then they vomited, and finally their internal organs dissolved from radiation. Little Tommy whispered, "Mom," with his last breath. Murphy wiped his eyes. 23 passengers and I died from radiation in that tunnel. But the government covered it up. We appeared as missing in official records. Daniel was horrified. Where are your bodies? In the depths of the tunnel, in a secret room. We've been rotting there for 74 years, and our souls were trapped in this train because we couldn't find justice. On the night of November 14th, Murphy showed Daniel the location of the secret room. It was located in a side tunnel 200 meters off the main track between Maverick Airport Tunnel. Daniel reached that area using work equipment. Behind old metal doors was a horrifying scene. 24 skeletons, 23 passengers plus Murphy, were sitting in metal chairs wearing 1950s clothes. But most terrifying was the posture of the skeletons, as if they had died in fear in their last moments. Little Tommy's skeleton was in a position reaching out to his mother. Margaret Sullivan's skeleton was holding student homework. James McCarthy's skeleton was gripping his wife's photograph. USARMYCLASSIFIEDEXPERIMENT labels were on the walls, but the most horrifying detail was the counters on the wall. Radiation levels were still at lethal levels. While Daniel was taking photos, the temperature of the room suddenly dropped. His breath became white vapor, and red lights began to glow in the skeleton's eyes. A voice came from little Tommy's skeleton. "Mister, can I go home now?" Daniel backed away in fear, but Margaret Sullivan's skeleton also spoke. "My students are waiting for me. I need to give my lesson." The documents he found in the room were even more horrifying. Project Deep Shelter, March 15th, 1950. Radiation exposure test on civilian population. Subjects, 24 individuals, expendable. Expected mortality. Rate, 100%. Classification level, beyond top secret. Dispose of bodies. Immediate burial in sealed chamber. At the end of the documents was the most shocking detail. Among the signatures approving the experiment was Daniel's grandfather, Patrick O'Connor's signature. On the night of November 15th, Daniel showed Murphy what he found, but also learned the most painful truth. "I found the documents." "I'll reveal the truth," Daniel said. Murphy's face was filled with gloom. "Daniel, I have something to tell you. It will be very difficult because you're Patrick's grandson." "What do you mean?" Murphy showed Daniel that horrifying document. Patrick O'Connor's signature is there. He was also part of the experiment. Daniel's world collapsed. "No, this can't be possible. My grandfather was a good man." Patrick had resisted at first, but the government offered him money and promotion. They also threatened their families. They said, either you sign or you become a test subject too. Murphy's voice was filled with pain. Patrick had regretted it at the last minute. He had tried to warn me that night. He said, "Murphy, don't board this train," but I didn't listen. Daniel started crying. "Grandpa, how could he sell us?" Patrick never forgave himself after that day. He had nightmares every night. He used to say, "I could have saved Murphy." When he died in 1994, his last words were, "May God forgive me." Little Tommy's spirit approached Daniel. "Your grandfather didn't kill us, mister. He was just scared. But you're different. You can save us." Margaret Sullivan's spirit also spoke. "Even if you're Patrick's grandson, you're innocent. You can help us." Daniel gained determination. "I'll clean my grandfather's sins. I'll find justice for you." Murphy looked with gratitude. Patrick's blood truly flows in you. He also wanted to do the right thing in the end. On November 16th, Daniel leaked the documents to the Boston Globe newspaper. The story was front-page news. 74-year secret experiment in Boston Metro. 24 people killed by radiation. The news caused a big echo in national media. FBI and CIA archives had to be examined. That night, Daniel met with Murphy for the last time. The truth came out. "Now you can find peace." Murphy smiled. Thank Patrick. He would have wanted this to happen. On the night of November 17th, Train 447 appeared for the last time. This time, it was different. Bright, clean-looking, and warm light was emanating from the cars. 23 passengers thanked Daniel one by one, but little Tommy's words were the most touching. "Mr. Daniel, can I go to my mom now? I waited for her for 74 years. Daniel wiped his eyes. "Yes, Tommy, you can go now." The child smiled and waved lovingly from the car window. "Thank you. You're a good man." Margaret Sullivan handed her student homework to Daniel. "Deliver these to my students. Tell them that Teacher Sullivan never forgot them." When Daniel took the papers, he had real homework in his hands, written 74 years ago but stayed fresh. James McCarthy gave his wife's photo to Daniel. "Tell Mary, I always loved her." Murphy gave his final message to Daniel. "Son, you're not just a metro operator, you're a hero and Patrick's pride, but I need to tell you one more secret." Murphy paused. "Patrick left you a legacy. In his house's basement, there's a metal box. Inside is a letter he wrote for us and all his savings. With that money, education scholarships can be given to the children of 23 families." Daniel was surprised. "Did Grandpa save money for me?" "No, for us, for the victims' families. Before Patrick died, he said, 'One day someone will learn the truth and this money will be used for justice.'" As the train was enveloped in bright light, little Tommy waved one last time. "Mr. Daniel, you're our family now," and disappeared forever. Only the scent of flowers and children's laughter remained in the tunnel. On the night of November 18th, the Blue Line was completely silent. Ghost Train 447 was no more. Murphy O'Sullivan and 23 passengers had found peace. Daniel wrote in his notebook that night, "Mission accomplished. Grandfathers are at peace." What happened after Daniel's revelation? Government statement. The U.S. government officially acknowledged the 1950 experiments and apologized to victim families. Compensation. $2 million compensation payments were made for each victim family. Monument. A train. 447 victims. Monument was erected at Maverick Station. Document disclosure. All secret experiments from the 1950s were disclosed to the public. Daniel visited his grandfather Patrick's grave. "Grandpa, you saved Murphy. 74 years later, but you succeeded." Sean O'Connor hugged his son. "Dad would be proud, Daniel." The family secret was finally illuminated. Daniel left Metro Operation to work at the Boston Historical Research Center. His mission: research secret events in history and give voice to victims. "Not only trains travel in metro tunnels," says Daniel. "Sometimes voices from the past also echo." Murphy O'Sullivan's story is displayed in a special section at the Boston Metro Museum. Visitors learn about the horrific experiments of 1950. The Blue Line now operates completely safely and normally. However, flowers are still left in the Maverick Airport Tunnel, in memory of Murphy and 23 passengers. Daniel still occasionally travels on the Blue Line. To remember them. After Daniel's revelation, dozens of secret experiments by the U.S. in the 1950s were revealed. The Boston case was recognized as a human rights violation. Dr. Patricia Williams, MIT History Department, Daniel O'Connor became not just a metro worker, but a symbol of historical justice. Daniel's Train 447 experience opened new ground in paranormal research in Boston. Other missing cases in the city began to be reinvestigated. Murphy O'Sullivan and 23 passengers finally found peace after 74 years. Daniel, Patrick O'Connor's grandson, cleaned the family honor and ensured historical justice. The Boston Metro system is now seen not just as a transportation network, but as a historic place that bridges the past and present. Daniel O'Connor's experience on the Blue Line went down in Boston history as a powerful story showing how the dark secrets of the past can heal and that justice is never too late. Do you think Daniel should have forgiven his grandfather Patrick? Is family honor more important or justice being served? How would you react if you discovered such a family secret? Share your thoughts in the comments.